Happy Valentine's Day. You know, for Trish and I, we consider ourselves to be Valentine's Day veterans. We're in the double digits this day. I can't say I did a great job celebrating Valentine's Day for the most part of our marriage, but since our two youngest kids' birthdays are only 2 days apart in March, do the math. We have some street cred with Valentine's Day. I've also picked up some street cred at anthropology, and this helps out, fellas, right? So here's a little advice to the dozens of adults meeting at Stacia's place tonight for an in-person speed dating event. You guys know Stacia, right? She does announcements and hosts one of our midweek live segments. She's hilarious. Apparently she's single and ready to mingle. Meeting face-to-face is a game changer. So I hope some of you feel something in your heart as you look into each other's eyes tonight. Knowing you're the sparkle in someone's eyes is one of the first steps to falling in love. And falling in love with someone is a game changer. You know what else is a game changer? Having Tom Brady as your QB. But that was sold last week. Today, I want to explore a game changer in our spiritual training. If you've been around church for some time, you might intuitively know that all the programs, classes, services, and spiritual disciplines don't produce the type of transforming results Jesus described in John 10:10 as living an abundantly full life. And if you're like me, I want to mature in Jesus. I want to experience life to the fullest, just as he promised. So what do? Well, we practice all the spiritual disciplines. We listen to sermons. We read our Bibles, even visit a mini church on occasion. But somehow the church has fallen short because it's missing a crucial piece. This piece is a game changer. The game changer is the other half of our brain. It's like forgetting to give someone the other half of your Valentine's, right? You cut out artwork like this and you forget them to give them the other half. It has a whole new meaning and it's a game changer when you give them the other half of your Valentine's. The other half of church is explained in this book called The Other Half of Church. And author Jim Wilder, there it is, right? He is a neurotheologian, meaning this brother has degrees in science of the brain and he has a degree in theology. The other guy, Michael Hendricks, is a seasoned pastor of spiritual disciplines. They teamed up to give us this book on how our brains work with discipleship. It literally blew my mind because, you know, it's a book about our brains. This book has little to do with the disciplines of discipleship as much as it does the framework of how we grow and live in a loving community. You see, they realize that the modern day church has done a better job at raising people up to have more right answers and more information about Jesus without having character of Christ. Character transformation and real growth are formed through the loving relationships that form in the right side of our brain, not the left side of our brain. The right brain starts processing our surroundings and draws conclusions before the left brain is even aware of what's happening. The right brain processes information 6 times per second. The right brain is considered to be the fast track, and the left brain is considered to be the slow track. The right brain isn't even supposed to be explained with words. So don't get your hopes up too high, expecting you're going to understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. Because it's almost impossible because your right brain is not how that works. Your left brain works. So our prayer today is, Lord, show me what I cannot see. Our right brain manages our strongest emotional connections to both people and God and character formation. So don't miss this. Character formation, the primary responsibility of the church, is governed by the right brain, not the left brain. Hopefully by now you might be wrestling with the fact that we don't grow the way we've been told. God designed our left brain to understand important aspects of our Christian beliefs from knowing the relational love of God through our right brain. This means we need a smoothly running right brain for our entire brain to function as God designed us to grow in Him. Ignoring right brain develops Christians who believe in God's love but have difficulty experiencing it in daily lives, especially during times of stress. When we fail to engage the full brain in our Christian communities, our spirituality gravitates to more left brain Christianity, and we lose the relational and emotional skills that form our character. Without them, our discipleship is really ineffective. Left-brain Christianity not only leads to a lack of character growth, it creates a relational environment that is optimal for narcissism and self-righteousness to grow. If you haven't experienced Christians being full of right answers while neglecting love relationships or emotional attachments, y'all been out of the church way too long. The mission of the church, including every believer, is given to us in the Great Commission by Jesus in Matthew 28. And you're familiar with this. Go make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them everything I've commanded you. This was the last charge Jesus gave to all believers before he went to heaven. Now, these scriptures tell us what the goal is, making disciples and equipping people. But it doesn't give us instructions on how people actually grow. Perhaps this is why Dallas Willard, you gotta love Dallas Willard, he intuitively coined the term the Great Omission after he observed the pattern of neglect in churches. Spiritual formation was pushed to the side by leaders who focused on projects and priorities as a ways of measuring success in their local church. When this happens, character becomes watered down and it becomes the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. And you notice that once people were saved, they were left in a permanent spiritual kindergarten without a pathway to spiritual maturity. And Willard quote, "The modern church aims to get people into heaven rather than to get heaven into people." I love that quote. Jesus started with full brain discipleship. John 14 says, "Then Judas Iscariot," not Judas, that one, that traitor, Judas Iscariot, a different Judas, "But Lord, why do you intend to show yourself to us and not to the world?" And Jesus replied, "Anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them, and I will come to them and make a home with them. Anyone who does not love me will not obey my teaching." Notice the order. Jesus reveals himself only to those who what? Who love him. The first step is love, not obedience. We love Jesus and we obey him. We do not love Jesus, we will not obey him, because our loving attachments to Jesus forms our character. The left brain processes this passage, concludes that we need to choose to obey, and this will prove that we love him. That's totally backwards. If I want to obey Jesus, I need to focus on the right brain skills that help me love him and receive his love. My behavioral, well, that will take care of itself. The science of our brains reveals it is designed to change us through love, our love for Jesus. Perhaps on the Valentine's Day, let's spend some time focusing how much we love God instead of the classic, how much God loves us. The other half of church describes 4 ingredients our souls need for character transformation. I only have time for the first 2 today, which would be a teaser for what we're going to talk about when we gather in person next week. The first is our love for Jesus. A natural result of left-brain Christianity gravitates towards strategies that are measurable, numbers of people, numbers of campuses, numbers of dollars, and numbers of small groups. The slow, messy work of character formation, which is hard to measure, is displaced by all these quantifiable goals. So this might hit home for you as it did for me, having a theology degree and then working in and with many church leaders for the past 3 decades. It's no surprise to know of churches that are filled with leaders who are super gifted at theology, amazing preaching skills, vision casting skills, all kind of skills, but have poor relational and emotional skills. And recent negative headlines reveal their prevalence in ministry, we're sad to say. I mean, after all, if we're changed by amazing sermons and Bible teaching, why do the hard, messy work of spiritual formation? Discipleship does not excite a leader whose eyes are fixed on numbers. So don't hear me wrong. Truth and information are very important, but the error is believing that thinking by itself produces character. Our right brain holds the nutrients in our soul for all the disciplines to take deep root. So number 1, our love for Jesus is one of the first nutrients our soul needs for character transformation. Number 2 is our joy. Say joy. Say joy. 2 Corinthians, for God said, "Let light shine out of the darkness, made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ." Joy here being defined as what I feel when I see the sparkle in someone's eye that conveys, "I'm happy to be with you." Having this kind of joy in our heart soil gives the spiritual disciplines good soil to grow in. The joy that runs through our emotions when we experience God seeing us as the sparkle in his eye. So right now, picture God looking at you with a sparkle in his eye. Can you feel the emotion of joy? I sure hope so. God designed our brains to run on joy. Our brains desire joy more than any other thing. As we go throughout our day, our brains scan our surroundings, looking for people who are just happy to be with us. The Bible is filled with images and descriptions of God's joy for us. Number 6 says, "The Lord bless you and keep you, and the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you, and the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace." The Lord shine upon you and the Lord turn his face towards you sounds like a neurological definition of joy according to Jim Wilder. Brain science reveals that this joy sensation is crucial for emotional and relational development. Our brain looks specifically to the face of another person to find joy, and this fills up our emotional gas tank. You see, joy is primarily transmitted through the face, especially in the eyes, and secondly, through our voices. Joy does not exist outside of relationship. Now, Aloha Church doesn't claim to have it all right all the time, but we were onto something in the beginning with just our name. You know, Aloha is 2 words. Alo means face, and ha is breath. And since day one, we believe the secret sauce for Aloha Church was that our leaders intuitively tapped into the other half of church before reading this book. And they tapped into it on just some basic levels. You know, we love Jesus and we actually enjoyed each other's company. We brought joy when we saw each other all the time. And we were able to look our guests in the eyes, intentionally communicating, "I see you. You're welcomed here. You bring me joy." In fact, one couple said they drove past our church on the way to visit another unnamed church, but because nobody even acknowledged them, they got back in their car and drove all the way back to Aloha Church, where they met with a huge smile and genuine joy. And instead of having the pressure to maintain our status of church by the amount of butts and seats or other metrics, we just want to see our friends and community bench transformed by the love of Jesus and raise the level of spam consumption in San Diego. Did you know that spam scientifically raises the level of joy in our lives? It's true. That's not in the book, but I may add it to the book. It's all scientific. Just kidding. Another way we experience joy is through our bodies. This might be a different concept for you if you grew up in a left brain dominant church. Experiencing God in and through your body is totally right brain. You know, when was the last time remembering feeling the joy of the Lord in your body? Some people say it feels like butterflies. Others say a tightness in their gut or a warm feeling on their neck or electricity on their spine or hands. Feeling joy in our bodies indicates that our right brain is functioning smoothly. If we lose this bodily connection, it's a sign that our right brain is not running well. Is this missing in our church communities today? God designed our bodies to experience joy. You know, I've heard of all sorts of classes and trainings in church, but I've never heard of a class on experiencing God with our bodies. And to be honest, I wonder what that class would look like. I don't know. It might be kind of weird, but that's okay. It might be missing in church. I found it interesting that the author, being a clinical psychologist, found that in his counseling sessions with people who had gone through trauma, saw a tremendous increase in the recovery rate when they spent time increasing their patient's joy tank. Because joy is the body's fuel, it's hard to do emotionally taxing therapy on people whose joy tanks are depleted. Eventually, their bodies just sort of collapsed. And we run a similar danger in our church if we don't build our joy together as part of our ministry and spiritual growth. Our bodies need joy in order for character development and spiritual growth. Jesus refused to relinquish his joy even in the midst of suffering on the cross. When we are able to stay relationally connected to others and God, we experience joy while suffering. See, joy does not remove our pain. It gives us the strength to endure. Joy is relational. So joy in suffering means that God and our communities are glad to be with us in our distress. They do not allow us to suffer alone. We are able to bear our suffering like Jesus, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. Hebrews 12. Last month, I was surrounded by family members who celebrated the loss of a loved one. Everyone came together to share sadness. They told stories about the deceased. We ate together and sat in silence together. And this is the definition of joy. I want to be with you. Joy is relational in its essence. So how do you increase joy in your tank? Number one, make a list of memories that you feel grateful and connect to God in that moment. It helps to close your eyes and try to relive that moment. Don't try to think about it, just try to feel it. Number two, read verses listed in the sermon notes from Psalms, like Psalms 4, 6 through 7. Many people say, who will show us better times? Let your face smile on us, Lord. You have given me greater joy than those who have abundant harvest of grain and new wine. How does that make you feel when you read, let your face smile on us? I love that. Thinking about God's face looking at me and smiling upon me. That brings me great joy. And if you're watching this with a mini church, take some time to go around the room, sharing something you are grateful for in each person. The more you spend time with them, it's easier. If you're just visiting, don't run for the door. We see you and we're glad you're a part of our mini church, right? If you're a parent, practice looking at your children in the face, telling them how special they are. This sets them up for a life full of relational energy. Your entire family will benefit when parents intentionally build joy with each other. You see, gratitude is the first step to building joy into our lives, and it helps us experience a more consistent attachment to God. One of my first experiences of feeling joy in my body was when I was in high school at a summer camp. We were singing praise songs around a fire at night. You see, I grew up in a Catholic school attending church my whole life. So my dominant left brain upbringing was now engaging with my right brain, processing feelings of love and experiencing a high joy environment. I can still remember that warm, tingly feeling in my spine thinking about Jesus' love for me. And I pictured his face looking at me for the first time in my life. It was unreal. And because I was surrounded with people whom I felt loved and accepted by, my spiritual walk grew tremendously in that environment because my heart soil was rich with love and joy. Joy helps us regulate painful emotions. And when it runs low, we will look to non-relational sources to stop the pain. And if we are to fulfill the Great Commission, our churches should be highly relational with high joy environments. So let's practice helping each other increase our joy capacity as part of our regular spiritual training. And our community becomes contagious when people come and see our joyful interactions. Young or old, Christian or not, our brains hunger for joy. And it's only when we are convinced that character transformation is a central task of church, we will be about raising the level of love for Jesus and the level of joy in our communities. So please join me next week as I discuss the last two ingredients our heart soil needs for character growth. I hope your mind was blown today. Lots of love and lots of joy. Aloha.